Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Territory with Mark. One of the first poems that I ever learnt in school was at least learnt it by heart, was the burial of Sir John Moore after the Battle of Corunna. And this was a battle fought in 1809 as the British troops were withdrawing from Spain through the port of Corunna back home. And Sir John Moore was unfortunately killed, but the poem immortalised him, and the first verse was, "Not a drum was heard, not a funeral note, as his course to the rampart we hurried. Not a soldier discharged a farewell shot over the grave where our hero was buried." So here was a man who died a hero's death, and his life was remembered in prose. Now this poem, for some reason, just keeps bouncing through my mind, like a little bee that's kind of buzzing around. And I've often reflected why, over the last number of years, is it becoming increasingly more frequent to my mind, and I question it, whether it's a question of maybe legacy. I think as you get older, you want to be remembered, you want it to be known that you passed this way, that you counted for something, and that you were noticed. Maybe even that somehow, you or I, we were heroic, we were brave, and we were intrepid. We took on the chaos and we returned back as victors. Now, I think this notion is born into the heart of every young boy, but modern society these days tries to tamper that down and maybe tries to erase it. But yet I think this conceptual idea still lingers, that we men, as we get older, we judge ourselves on what we've done. And perhaps this is why Samuel Johnson once said that every man thinks meanly of himself for not having been a soldier or having been at sea. We all know that there are great dragons outside there that are waiting to be slayed. And when we haven't done it, we feel like moral failures. And sometimes even worse, when we hear of others doing it, that really kind of rankles with us and kind of hurts us, knowing that we maybe haven't tried, or we didn't succeed whenever we tried to slay the dragons. Maybe we weren't prepared to pay the price. Every one of us has our excuses. So I would say that modern man thinks about legacy probably the same way his ancestors did. But very much often I think our thoughts about legacy get tied up with what we have accumulated. Every day we toil, we labour, we put money in the bank, we buy houses. We try and have something to show for the labour that we put in. But interestingly, I would argue, if this is your mindset, you're probably thinking about legacy incorrectly. My grandmother, she always used to say, it's the first wife that sews the cushions, but it's the second wife that sits on them. I think the point she was making was, it doesn't matter what you leave behind, it will be squandered or spent quickly. It doesn't even matter how much that is. People will not think of you any more or any less. As I think about it, it must be something to do with the fact that we are finite beings passing through an infinite world. We think we are the centre of the universe, and it's not hard to understand that because of just how we're built. And with our passing, we believe that, the sun should fall from the sky and the waves should stop crashing. But the reality is that never happens, and I think that affects us at a certain visceral core level. The rhythm of life goes on and we are soon forgotten. Just take a moment to walk through any graveyard and study the names of the people there. Chances are, well, I can guarantee you 99.99% of the time, you don't know any of those people. And that is not to diminish their lives or what they did, but it's just a true reflection of how life passes, and we come and we go. I would say we would be lucky that if our name is spoken by our great-grandchildren, I think it'll probably go in most cases that far, but likely they will only have a single sentence to say about you, maybe such as, he was a baker and he was a strict man. On the surface, this seems like a reason to despair, but I can tell you that the butterfly effect of your actions and your character should ripple into the future. I know this to be the case whenever I think back of the lives of my grandfather and my father. They're both now gone, but the way they acted, the way they thought, the way they taught me, all these things are intertwined within my own life and how I think and how I act and how I treat people. The world is an arena for action, and we've been put here to play a part. We have skills, we have strengths, and there are sacrifices which are going to be demanded of us. If you don't have faith, I think this is all quite hard to contextualize. If there's no hope, for the hereafter, we may conclude that there is no point. Now, as I've said before in other videos, I'm firmly convinced we have a duty here, and that there is indeed a hope for the future in the finished salvific work of Jesus Christ. Now, even though on one hand you may say I've got that philosophical or theological pass, I'm not off the hook. I'm fallible. I miss the mark. I get distracted by what's happening and what I think I should be doing. And I don't live up to the standards I set for myself or set for me externally. But I am as determined as any man watching this to leave behind a legacy. But what I'm learning is it's not about wealth. It's not about accumulation. Instead, you see, I now realise this is about taking territory in the hearts of the people who care for you and that you care for. And this starts with your family and your friends. My legacy, in fact, your legacy, should now be measured in how people feel about you whenever they think about you, whenever you're gone. And my hope is that they will feel a deep sense of loss, yet at the same time be rewarded for what you imparted to them, your strength, your faith, your upright life, your love, and your steadfastness. Of course, we all want to be remembered like this, but this is going to come down to our character. And the question will be, were you a man of principle, or were you blown about by the wind of your emotions? Character development, therefore, and discipline exercised in the pursuit of our God-given strength is the battle that we're going to have to fight every single day. And that's where the war rages hottest. That's where the war rages hottest or fiercest. We all have our own flaws, and these are regrettable, and we need to work on these in order to prevent them holding us below the waterline. But I've realised that our focus actually should be on our strengths, because this is where the character development work should be aimed at. We should be disciplined daily to practice our stronger skills, because ultimately what's going to happen with these stronger skills, they're the weapons that need to be sharpened and honed to take us into the unknown. Whenever we go outside our own walls, from the green zone into the red zone, that's where the dragons live. And these strengths are what will carry us through. Now, your bravery and your steadfastness must be what define you. Let your actions and your faith indeed ripple out into the future for the next generation. Let them learn from you. Let them take on that baton so that they're something that they can pass on to the next generation. Now, you might not be remembered by name, but your life, your character, your works should speak into the hearts of your various descendants. Your character, your actions, and your behaviour today defines your legacy well into the future. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one.